God's faithfulness always amazes me, especially when it came to the events we planned. Our schedule changed every single time we met, and even in Japan, things were being added or taken out all the time. It seemed very hectic, and oftentimes we would stay up late trying to create a plan for the next day. Even while we were preparing for our trip, we didn't always have the exact number of people coming to every event. And for the days we needed to have childcare, we never knew the ages of the kids who were coming to different events, and had to plan several activities that we would use depending on who showed up. This sometimes felt a little discouraging because we made all these plans but never used some of them. While the planning process wasn't ideal, the people God brought to every event were perfect. At every single event, even the more last-minute ones, God brought at least one person every time. Thankfully, we never had an event where no one showed up. Even the smaller events ended up being such a blessing for us. We had the opportunity to get to know people better in ways we could not have if there were more people in attendance. The events that seemed really last minute also ended up being a huge blessing for us, and hopefully for everyone in attendance too. No matter how many people came, we did our best to bond and connect with them. It wasn't always what we were expecting, but we had to trust that God brought just the right people to each event. We had prayed for so long that God would use the events we planned to introduce people to Suita Church and to help people feel more comfortable attending church regularly. Our goal was never just to host events. We wanted to introduce people to church members and other believers in Suita so they might be more inclined to come back to church. God was faithful in answering our prayers of connecting with people at all of our events. We continue to pray that the people we met would be able to find community at Suita Church and that they would one day choose to have their own relationship with God.
God's plan. In preparation for our mission trip to Japan, we were preparing for our different seminars, a marriage seminar, parenting seminar, giving our testimonies, different other things we were planning. We had a plan in place, and when we got to Japan, at times those plans sometimes changed. One day, Pastor Kevin said he needed volunteers to teach a English class. So he needed 4 volunteers to teach a couple of older people some conversational English. So I volunteered, and I didn't know what to expect. But going to the English class, the lesson plan was already in place. But God just used that time. I got to know Katsuko and Haru, and through that time and through the questioning and through our conversations, I was able to share with them just why we were there in Japan, and just about their church, the Suita Church. And so it wasn't something we planned, but God used it. Another place we went to visit was also in the area, in the community. We were able to go visit a taiko drum class, and they were preparing for the Matsuri, which is, probably the Buddhist religion, just for their festival. And I thought about it. I kind of had mixed feelings at times about going, but I thought about it, and just while we were there, God used that time, and I thought, who else is going to go visit these people and share about Jesus? And although we didn't directly use our testimony, we were there, and they knew why we were there. And so God used those things. We weren't planning to go, or we weren't planning to do English classes, but I know God had that plan, and we just thank you for your prayers and support, and pray that just through those little meeting times, God can use it and help those things to grow. So thank you.
I wanted to share just some ways that I saw God at work in our trip. And the first one was we had planned some things in our schedules, but God had other things in mind as well in addition. And some of the church members and even just those who are connected to the church, because we were there, invited others to just some impromptu events in their home and at the church. And I think God just really used those opportunities for us to meet people and to invite them back to other things. And I just was touched by their boldness to reach out, even at the park or their house. And God even used some unsaved people who just wanted to gather and meet us. And so we thank God for that. And the other thing is we're all very different in our ages and our experiences and our unique personalities in the team members. And I really saw God work in each one of us in different ways. So that was a real blessing. And the last thing was the church at Suita is, I heard that they are one of the biggest churches in Japan as far as just their lot and the number of people. They have lots of services, but I just saw their fervency and their just dedication to minister to the people there, because there are very few Christians in Japan. They have one service that they record, the Sunday service, and then they just show the video. But there were just maybe 3 or 4 at that small service watching a video. But they are just dedicated to come and to greet them, and just they have such a heart for ministry and outreach. And we went to minister through their church and partner with them, but we were just in turn blessed by how much they cared for others. And so thank God for his work in the world and in Japan through their church. And thank you to Kevin and Ayumi for leading us, and just their time and sacrifice, and for you for sending us and allowing us to go. Thank you so much.
Naomi and I could not really estimate the number of craft items we needed to purchase for Mama's Cafe, because we never got a solid head count from Suita Church. Ayumi suggested we bring enough for 10 people, and we kept that in mind as we shopped for supplies. For our spa day, we had 2 crafts. One was decorating mini first aid kits with origami paper and a Bible verse. Naomi brought 11 of them to Japan. The second craft was making a homemade sea salt body scrub. We purchased 12 small jars at the local Daiso store in Japan. Naomi brought just enough sea salt from home for 12 containers. We were nervous about not having enough supplies for all the ladies, since the previous day we had about 18 ladies plus 4 more who volunteered to do childcare. As God would have it, he brought 12 ladies to spa day, and there were just enough supplies for everyone, once we gave Naomi's sample first aid kit to one of the ladies. God showed us that he cares just as much about the little details as he does about the big ones. An example of God being in the big details was when we found out that Pastor Kajiyama's wife had stage 2 breast cancer and was going to have surgery soon. Pastor Kajiyama is the senior pastor of Suita Bible Church. Kevin invited him to have lunch with us adults. He was confused about why we invited him to lunch, and we explained we heard about his wife's cancer and we wanted to pray for him and his family. He talked about his stress level and the challenges of being a caregiver, and he turned to Kevin and asked about how sabbaticals work in the United States. In Japan, no one takes sabbaticals. It's not part of their work ethic or culture. He was curious as to what Kevin does on his sabbaticals. He was worried about his flock and his fellow pastors if he took time off. We encouraged him to pray more about taking time off to care for himself and for his family. With his wife's surgery, she would need plenty of attention, and he also has a daughter who needs care as well. Kevin reminded him that taking a sabbatical shows his family that he is putting them before work. It's setting a good example for the rest of the pastoral staff and setting a precedent for them to also be able to take sabbaticals. After lunch, we presented him with a care package for his wife, and the entire team sang, "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus," to him. He was so appreciative. Surprisingly, the next day, Pastor Kajiyama ran into Scott and shared with him that he decided to take a 1-month sabbatical. We were very excited for him. He's trusting that God will take care of the congregation, his fellow pastors, and the work of Suita Bible Church. He's trusting God with all of these big details, knowing that nothing is too big for God to handle.
One of the times I saw God working through this trip was an evening that we had an impromptu worship session and a jam session after dinner. It was with the high school and college students that attended the church. It started out with just a couple of people playing the guitar and just learning from each other. But through that, more people joined the circle through singing. Everyone there had such a thirst and a hunger to just learn more worship songs so that they can lift those up to God. One of the songs that stuck out that everyone knew was One Way by Hillsong. I think it was introduced to their church from a previous missionary team. I'm so glad that I got to share in that experience with the students there. There's some students who knew some English, and I definitely did not know any Japanese. Despite that, we were all able to worship Jesus through music. I'm sure if there wasn't a curfew, we definitely could have gone longer into the night, just playing the guitar, playing the piano, and just worshiping God. I'm so thankful to have gotten to know both our mission team as well as the members of the church over in Suita. There's such a joy being able to encourage one another through music and through fellowship. Thank you.
I'm going to share about the day one of the Suita church members invited us to come meet some of the neighborhood kids at park near her house. She wanted us to come to her place because her neighbors are hesitant to come to church when she invites. There are 15 to 20 kids and some of their mom. We played some fun games and ate watermelon. While kids are eating watermelons, Kev started sharing gospel using all the different colors of watermelon. Some kids didn't sit still. Some kids were listening curiously whole time. I hope whenever they eat a watermelon, they remember the story Kev shared. After this short program, I heard how we impacted the moms who were there. They say they appreciated that we came, and they had a curiosity about our team. And the other mom says she wants to put her kids into VBS next year. I truly appreciate all the team members who diligently served God and spread love of God by making new friendship.
All the times that I spent with every new face I met in Japan was such an experience. From being called Kaisen's younger brother to BTS. The memories that we shared and the friendships that we made can't be put into words. How God works in each of our lives to be able to live, laugh, and learn. And through that power, I had the strength to openly and easily interact with so many people. Many of the people were very close to my age, and hearing their stories of how they came to Christ, or just joyful memories, resonated with me on a much deeper level, allowing me to speak more comfortably. And I saw God's work in all our lives, building stronger friendships that would last for a long time. It was honestly such a blessing to watch each of our members grow in both their relationship with Christ and with the people there. Being with them, we grew closer, learning about life together. Being the youngest on my first ever mission trip and being on my own away from my family, I thought it would be difficult to interact comfortably with anybody because of the relationship they had already established with each other. So it gave me peace of mind just talking to those who have experienced the same thing already. But through sharing their experiences and worries, they taught me that it's okay to rely on others and to not be afraid to open my heart. As I prepared for this trip, I had made friendship bracelets that I was supposed to give to people I met. The purpose was so they remember us and reminded them of God's power. My fear was not being able to give any of the bracelets away. But through faith, I opened my heart and was able to spread His love through those bracelets and give it to everyone. Through God's love, He brought so many amazing people that were very open to learning His grace, which made our jobs much easier. But to see non-Christians be so accepting to the work that we were doing was truly a blessing and a product of God working through us.
Throughout our time in Japan, I really saw God moving in so many ways, but I wanted to share with you a couple of personal experiences that I had that had shown me how God was working both in my own heart, but also in the hearts of the people that I was able to build relationships with in Japan. So the first experience I wanted to share with you was when I was given the opportunity to share my testimony with a handful of the moms that attended our Mommy and Me class that we had held at the church. So when I was first asked to share my testimony with them, I was really nervous because I knew that most of them were non-believers, and I was worried about how what I was going to say was going to make them feel or how they would react to hearing my testimony. But fortunately, after I had shared with them how God was working in my life and how he continues to work in my life now, a couple of the moms had come up to me and just had said, thank you for your vulnerability and your bravery and your courage to come share my story with them. And that one interaction just had really moved me in knowing that God can use my story or my testimony to work in their hearts as well. And one thing that had really encouraged me was that one of the moms that had attended the Mommy and Me class, she had actually come to multiple more events that we had planned later that week and the following week as well. And I was just really happy to know that this mom wanted to continue coming to church, and hopefully that led to building relationships with people that were at the Suita church that we had worked with. I'm just hoping that this can be an encouragement to you to be bold in your faith and share your testimony. The second experience I wanted to share with you was actually when we had the opportunity to meet and reconnect with 3 or 4 of the moms that we actually had originally built our relationship here in LA through our English class at Victory. But God's timing was so perfect in the fact that he allowed us to reconnect with them in Japan and to just let them know that even after they move back to Japan, our relationship continues to stay strong and for years to come. And I hope that can be an encouragement to the moms that are here today. And we are looking forward to sharing more with you of how God is working in our hearts through this trip. Thank you.
In Japan, we had the opportunity to lead our 3-day retro video game themed Raise Your Game with Power Up VBS, where each day the kids learned about Bible stories or about Jesus, about faith, about Christianity through the greater lens of characters like Sonic and Yoshi and the Super Mario Bros. Game, other video games like that, Pac-Man, Tetris. So we had a lot of fun, not only with the theming, but being able to interact with the kids in that space. During VBS, my sister and I led the Bible story time, and we taught different Bible lessons to the kids each day. We split them up into small groups during that time too, and it was really fun to see the kids get to interact with each other a lot more than they might otherwise, and get to interact with our leaders a lot more, and being able to share so openly, and just seeing how strongly they were able to interpret and absorb these larger concepts of Christianity that we were teaching them. On the first day of VBS, we taught the parable of the unforgiving servant and how, with God's power, we are able to forgive others. On the second day of VBS, we taught about Jesus washing the disciples' feet, and how we are empowered by God just to love others and how God loves us. We also made a gospel presentation on that day about how God loves us no matter what, and how God will forgive all of our sins. And we had an altar call towards the end of our Bible story time, and it was really cool to see a few of the non-Christian kids accept Christ that day. It's not often that you get to see fruit of all of the work that you're doing on a mission trip while you're in the place that you've been sent to. And so it was really amazing to see God working in that, and to see the reward of all of our hard work while we were there.
Through this missions trip to Osaka, I just saw God's sovereignty and his goodness. And that all started out at home as I was waiting for my passport. To be honest, until right before I got my passport, I didn't think I was going to make it at all. Until that next morning, it got delivered, and I was able to make we were able to book a flight the same day. And the next morning, I was in Japan. I was with the team. I was at church making relationships, and I was in time for VBS, which was just a huge blessing. I was able to see just God's goodness through all the kids, and all the moms who had made it out as well to Mama's Cafe. One specific family I had mentioned in one of the emails was boy in my class. His name was Atsuto, and his mom's name was Asuko. And he was just so cute, and he was such a blessing in our family, in our class as well. As he just learned so much, and he smiled a lot, and he just had a great time dancing and just spending time with the other boys in the class. It was just a great blessing just to see Asuko as well, as she danced hula with the other moms and Auntie Tanya and Tanae. And it was also super cool as they decided to go to church that Sunday. And man, they live an hour away, but just to see them come every day for VBS and to make it to Sunday, church on Sunday was super cool. Atsuto, he just broke down every single time he was leaving the church because he didn't want to leave. He had left me a note and a picture of us and just a little origami of a crane, and just the time that he spent to do that was just a blessing for me as well. So I just saw God's goodness and his greatness through just getting me here and just letting me be a part of Atsuto's life as he just starts his journey in his walk with Christ. And so, yeah, I'm just eternally grateful for just this experience on this mission trip.
There were so many sweet moments on this trip that I will forever remember and cherish, one of them being that we got to reunite with friends we met 5 or 6 years ago and pick up right where we left off. But I also got to share my testimony 3 times on this trip. One of them was planned at our taco party, but the other 2 times were completely unexpected and by the Lord's will and timing. I got to share my testimony with a girl named Kie and a girl named Nozomi. Kie had never been to church before until her team got there. She came to Uncle Scott's safety seminar and heard his testimony there. So I got to talk to her afterwards and kind of just see what she thought about his testimony, and she was asking me how I came to know Jesus and just who Jesus is in my life. So I got to share that with her, which was really special, and hopefully you guys will get to meet her when she comes to California in November, but just be praying for her walk with the Lord. I also got to share my testimony with a girl named Nozomi. Nozomi is 17 years old, has only been going to church for 6 months. She understands the gospel, but isn't completely ready to commit her life to Christ yet. So she's asking me just how I spend my quiet times, how I grow my relationship with the Lord, and how I came to know Jesus. So I got to share that with her too, which was just really special. Both of those conversations completely had the Lord's hand in them. They both have only been learning English for a short amount of time, and we only use Google Translate. We didn't even need a translator, and they completely understood what I was saying. So that was the power of technology and the power of Jesus, because there was no other way they would have been able to understand me. And then we also got to do VBS, which was super sweet. I got to see kind of how God's been preparing me to do this VBS over the past couple years. I've used a lot of what I learned out here in Arizona to kind of use in Japan, which was really special. Worship was definitely one of my favorite parts. We got to teach the kids a bunch of worship songs, and we got to see the children and the staff worship in a posture that they're probably not used to. Worship in Japan is so much different than what I'm used to, and just seeing them worship with their hands raised and the eyes closed, just complete awe of the Lord, was just so special. They just had so much joy on their face, and they just looked so free when they were worshiping. So those are just really, really sweet moments that I will forever remember.